Hi, I'm Jesse Waters in for Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching this special edition of The Factor, President Trump, the first month. Let's get right to our top story, Donald Trump versus the establishment. The relationship is in full meltdown following his first solo press conference yesterday, where President Trump took the press to task.
Look, I want to see an honest press. When I started off today by saying that it's so important to the public to get an honest press. The public doesn't believe you people anymore. Now, maybe I had something to do with that. I don't know. But they don't believe you.
The mainstream media was defensive and dismissive.
I don't think he's mad at the media.
You don't?
I think he's mad at not being boss anymore.
He's very entertaining, and I fear that a lot of Americans are getting addicted to him. I fear that we in the media, and I don't exclude myself, are getting addicted to writing about him because it's just so easy to do, number one. And so he's got his entertainment value.
While the media and other elites hyperventilated, supporters of President Trump could not have been happier.
This was one of the most effective press conferences I've ever seen. The press is going to hate him even more after this. Don't misunderstand. When I say effective, I'm talking about rallying people who voted for him to stay with him.
Joining us now with a reaction from Washington, Ashley Pratt, a conservative commentator and U.S. News and World Report contributor. And here in studio, radio talk show host Mike Gallagher. So, Mike, remember during the campaign when everyone says, let Trump be Trump, and they kind of let him do his thing, and he ended up winning. That was the Trump who won. And that's what we saw yesterday, the campaigner Trump. So now the media's come out and they've said this is not an effective Donald Trump, but that was the Trump that won. So I still think the media is missing the boat on this guy.
Everything that got Donald Trump elected was on display yesterday. And if any of these elitists think that average, hardworking, normal Americans give a rat's rear end about the media being tweaked by President Trump, they ought to take a long, hard look in the mirror and realize they are pitifully and wildly out of touch with what's reality. What's reality is that's the President Trump that voters and Americans expect. The best is yet to come. He's had a really good month. He had some highlights this week.
It gets better than this?
Oh,
he's going to be even more
we're in for
antagonistic
a ride.
towards the press?
We're in for a ride.
Well, it looks like we are because he just tweeted out something I want to show the audience here. We have it up for you. He says, the fake news media, failing New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, CNN, is not my enemy. It is the enemy of the American people. So, Ashley, it looks like he's trying to do is align himself with the American people and really drive a wedge between the press and the rest of the country. He pretty much did that the other day during the press conference. Do you agree with that or not?
The press, which has a job to report, it is their responsibility to report, to get news to the American people. And look, I believe the mainstream media, I as a conservative have for many years been critical of them, and they deserve that criticism. But at the same time, it is their duty to report the news. And the decorum the other day, it was lacking. He is no longer a candidate. He is the president of the United States, and he needs to act like that. The journalists there were just doing their job and asking questions.
Ashley,
it wasn't a combative atmosphere until he made it one.
With all due respect,
that is problematic.
Ashley.
No, let me finish.
Let her finish.
It was Thomas Jefferson, who is by all means regarded by the conservative movement, who had said our greatest liberty is the freedom of the press, and that liberty could die without it. So I think we should heed the wise words of one of our nation's founders, don't you think?
The only thing I would say to that, and then we can get to Michael, is the American people did not elect Thomas Jefferson. If they had wanted to elect a guy and it was all about decorum, they would have elected Mitt Romney. But they wanted a renegade, and they got a renegade.
Also didn't vote for him as well, and we have to realize that. The ones marching down Washington.
Hold on, Ashley, let Mike get in.
The problem, Ashley, and I don't mean this to be personal, but you're a never Trumper. You've been against.
I was.
Of course, you still are.
And you still.
Excuse me. Excuse me. I let you finish. At the end of the day, you guys who were opposed to Donald Trump are still anguished that he won. To a person, self-described conservatives or Republicans who were critical of yesterday's epic press conference are never Trumpers. You guys have been continually against the guy. You want him to fail.
Mike, let her finish. Ashley, do you agree with the point that maybe you have not yet accepted the fact that Donald Trump, this Donald Trump, is president, and this is the way he's going to behave towards the press for the next 4 years at least? eventually we're going to have to get used to this, right?
Look, Obama won. I was not thrilled about that, but guess what? You can complain all you want. You can disagree with policy all you want, and we did when conservatives were shut out or mocked during press conferences by Josh Earnest. But guess what? We can't be hypocritical and be doing the same thing over the next 4 years. It is, because calling out CNN as fake news and saying, I don't watch you, you're this, you're that, and all these other things is just absolutely absurd, because when Obama did it, conservatives railed against him. I was one of them. So to stand there and say that this is okay is absolutely ridiculous. Let me finish one more thing. As a never-Trumper, yes, I was conservative and concerned because of the fact that he said many concerning things. Yes, he got great talking points, and I'm glad that he won because he proved me wrong. But at the end of the day, he has a chance to prove me wrong again by being a good president. But what he did the other day was very, very unpresidential.
Ashley, the thing that I would say to you, comparing President Obama to President Trump with the way he treats the press,
which
if
we were
Fox
all upset
News
about, I
was
can agree on that, I
reporting
think.
fake news stories, then President Obama would be within every one of his rights to call it like he sees it. Now, I believe CNN and a lot of the other mainstream media, let me finish, I believe a lot of the other mainstream media are reporting fake news stories, whether it's the MLK bust, whether it's the dossier that Russia allegedly had on him, whether it's this new thing where the intelligence apparatus is not telling him certain intelligence and withholding that.
But what about
he's
when people
within
in
all
his
of his
own
rights to
administration
call
are
it what
leaking
he sees.
information?
Look at
let Mike now.
Breitbart is running stories against prevents.
Hold on, Ash, let Mike finish, please.
This week, the president had a historic visit with the Prime Minister of Israel. They covered the mainstream media that you're defending, Ashley, spent more time worrying about what he tweeted about Ivanka's clothing line than that. How about the story that was reported that there was no collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians? Little blurb, they're worried about how he words a tweet. Ashley, you've been on the wrong side of this from day one. You're still on the wrong side of it.
Okay.
And I know you're in a bad place, but at the end of the day, he's not going to adjust for you.
I've not been bitter about it. I've admitted that I was wrong.
You don't
but
look
at the
bitter.
same time,
you look
need
very
to realize
beautiful,
that
Ashley,
I think it's great that conservative outlets are getting the credit they deserve now.
Okay, but I think we're going to have to get used to it. Up next, President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration sparks furious backlash from immigration groups. The latest on that, moments away.
Watch Fox.
Fake news in the mainstream media. Earlier today, the Associated Press reported that the Trump administration was considering mobilizing the National Guard to round up illegal immigrants in many states. The White House fiercely denied the report, stating it was 100% not true, and came from an early draft memo never seriously considered. Despite that, immigration activists are directing their anger at recent ICE raids across the country, claiming that illegal immigrants without criminal records are also being targeted. Joining us now with a reaction from Washington, Mark Krikorian from the Center for Immigration Studies, and from Salt Lake City, Ali Noorani, author of the forthcoming book, There Goes the Neighborhood. So, Mark, was this another case of fake news? Because to me, on the surface, it looks like the AP comes out with a splashy headline. Then the White House Press Secretary Spicer denies it. Is there any truth to this, mobilizing the National Guard to undertake raids?
No, this was, as I understand it, it was a discussion memo at the staff level offering possibilities, and it didn't even mention raids. What it was suggesting the possibility of giving an existing kind of law enforcement authority, it's called 287G authority, to National Guard that we're interested in states that were interested in. And that wasn't even seriously considered. It was just thrown out as one of the possible ideas.
So the National Guard could be deputized to undertake some sort of, not raid, but assistance with local law enforcement?
Right, exactly. It's the kind of stuff that cops in all kinds of jurisdictions do now. And again, to emphasize, this was just a staff discussion paper, not anything that was considered at the White House level.
Right.
And it's the AP that turned it into fake news. This really, there's a word for this. Fake news is a new term. The old term was yellow journalism. This was yellow journalism.
Now, let me ask Ali, there's a saying, elections have consequences. And President Trump, when he was the candidate, ran on a deportation force of some sort. We all know he wants to go after the bad hombres. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if Donald Trump does start deporting people who cross the border illegally but have not committed any other crimes since then, is that going to be a huge problem?
Well, I think what we saw in this draft memo that was leaked today and reported on by the Associated Press is that, it's a summation of the Trump administration's executive orders over the last month. This, in essence, lays out how they may very well want to implement those 3 executive orders, whether it's the border wall, interior enforcement, or the travel ban. The massive increase in border patrol, the massive expansion of enforcement authorities. This is the net result of, yes, a campaign promise for deportation force and the removal of 11 million people. And spending tens of billions of dollars over the course of time. I think that the backlash is going to be severe. I think the majority of Americans do not want to see our country go, have the National Guard go door to door. And at the end of the day, even half of Trump's primary voters are opposed to his immigration
let me ask you this, Mark, because you're a pretty hardline immigration guy. If Trump just does the border wall and he does the sanctuary city defunding, and he goes after the bad hombres, the criminals and the cartel guys and the felons, and gets them out of there, but does not go after regular people that cross the border illegally or overstayed their visas but haven't committed a crime since. Is the base going to get extremely angry with that, yes or no?
No, I don't think so, because the key issue here is not whether under this return to normal immigration enforcement, they're going to go knocking people's doors down and say, hey, where's your green card? What happened under Obama is that they also went after the bad hombres, but they said in writing that regular illegal immigrants are immune from law enforcement. They will not have to face the consequences of their actions. What we're seeing now is a return to normal pre-Obama law enforcement, where the priority is still the worst actors, but that regular folks don't have some kind of pass if they're illegal immigrants. The analogy of what we saw under Obama was like the IRS saying, we're going to target money launderers and cartel people. That's job one for us. But if you're a regular person who just chooses not to pay your taxes, we're going to ignore you. That's what Obama said. That's what's changed now. We've gone back to a normal enforcement system.
Yeah, and normal enforcement is enforcing the law of the land, Ali. I mean, if someone's not paying taxes, or someone's living in a trap house, or someone's just drinking and driving, or moving violations, they get caught up with some small beef like that, they have to face the consequences. I mean, that's not draconian, right?
We are completely in support of smart law enforcement, the smart prioritization of valuable law enforcement resources. And that means that those valuable law enforcement resources should be focusing on, quote, the bad hombres. We are completely in support of that. But that second executive order that the president signed expanded the enforcement priorities. So when Mark is saying a return to normal enforcement, what he is saying is that that second enforcement order leads to the mass deportation of up to 8 million people.
Well, I mean, I think they have
here.
normalized this so much, where I was up in the Bronx the other day talking to a bunch of illegal immigrants, and they don't really fear Trump raids at all. Guys, thank you very much. Coming up next on this special edition of The Factor, critics of President Trump claim things